except under conditions which are irrelevant here. Israel was informed back in 1967 by its highest legal authorities, including a very distinguished international lawyer, Theodore Meron. They were advised that any settlement at all would be in violation of the Geneva Conventions. And they recognized it. Moshe Dayan, who was Minister of Defense, in charge of the territory, said, yes, that's true. It's illegal, but we're going to do it anyway. Countries do things that violate international law, so we'll do it. And they continued, and the kind of tacit assumption is that as long as the master of the world winks politely, you can violate international law. The actions in Jerusalem, which are on the front pages now, are doubly illegal. They're in violation of the Geneva Conventions, fundamental international law, and they're also in violation of specific Security Council resolutions going back to 1968, barring Israel from doing anything to change the character of Jerusalem. Actually, at that time, the United States voted for those resolutions. That was when the United States was still part of the world on this issue. But international law cannot be applied against a powerful state that simply says, I'm going to ignore it.
So do you think the term international law is kind of a misnomer that maybe we should avoid? Or is it more valuable to have that?
I think it's valuable to have it, just as it's valuable to have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If we can manage, we can bring citizens to understand that their own states are violating principles of law that they formally, theoretically at least, advocate and use against enemies. That's educational. Now, it's very hard to do. So, for example, on the Nicaragua case that I mentioned, people have been trying, like I've been trying for, 25 years now, and others have too, but it's really hard. The media won't cover it. Intellectual opinion doesn't want to hear about it. So you have to work by the usual ways of popular organizing, which is slow and hard, but it can have effects over time. And the same is true of Israel and of the occupied territories. Popular opinion is shifting quite considerably. Elite opinion isn't shifting. The media aren't shifting. The political Congress isn't shifting. But the public is shifting substantially. You can see it. Just this last week, I've given 3 talks to groups that are very much involved in this, people very much engaged, doing good things. A couple of years ago, that didn't exist at all. You had to have police protection if you tried to talk about these things. Well, those shifts of public opinion can ultimately have an effect on policy and on media and articulate opinion and so on. But we all know that's hard work.
Are you seeing any signs that policy is changing as a result of the shift in public opinion?
Not as a result of the shift in public opinion, but there's now a split for the first time that I know of, a split in the military and intelligence system. They have been highly supportive of Israel until now, along with high-tech industry and other crucial parts of the U.S. society. But now there's concern. It was voiced by General Petraeus a couple of weeks ago when he said that Israeli intransigence, refusal to accept a political settlement, is harming the U.S. forces fighting in the region. It's creating a danger to U.S. forces. Well, he retracted that statement, but he probably believed it. And similar comments have been made by people high up in the U.S. intelligence system, like Bruce Riedel, one of the old Asia hands and Middle East hands in the intelligence system. He's the man who ran Obama's Afghan policy program. He said it straight out. He said this is just causing harm to our forces in the wars we're fighting there. Well, if this extends, it could lead to a change of policy. In fact, it could lead to a wave of anti-Semitism. I mean, if the government decided to pursue this line of argument, that it could be dangerous. And the supporters of Israel are worried about it. Indyk, who was he was Clinton's ambassador to Israel. He sort of comes out of a semi-AIPAC background. He had an op-ed in the New York Times, in which he quietly and politely warned Israel that they're treading on dangerous ground if they antagonize. He pointed out that there are elements in the United States which regard it as really for the first time, as a strategic interest to settle the problem. And he's essentially gave a nice mild warning to Netanyahu that you better take account of that. Actually, the New York Times did too. Ethan Brunner, who's their correspondent in Jerusalem, and is highly supportive of Israel. He actually had a pretty reasonable column a couple of days ago in which he quoted a letter in the Hebrew press, an interesting letter by Ari Shavit, who's a kind of a centrist, pretty hawkish columnist. It was a long letter in which Shavit warned Netanyahu that you're really causing the Israel problems by, irritating the sponsor on whom we rely for survival. Well, it was an interesting letter. It's interesting that he wrote it. Even more interesting for us that the New York Times referred to it. That indicates, I think, that they're concerned about the possibility, which could develop, and you can imagine it developing in a way which really would release a wave of nativist anti-Semitism. What are they doing harming our brave boys and girls defending the country in Iraq and Afghanistan?
To read the excerpt from Hopes and Prospects that Professor Chomsky has titled A Middle East Peace That Could Happen But Won't, in Washington Speak, Palestinian State Means Fried Chicken, please visit TomDispatch.com. I'm Timothy McBain, and until we meet again, thanks for listening.